And when my mum fell pregnant on the cruise ship, she had to hide it for a number of months because they didn't have enough money to leave at the time that they found out. So I can remember her telling me she used to tie like towels and things and
to hide the bump.
To hide the bump for as long as they possibly could. Everyone is right until you do what you go on to do. And that's the tough bit about it. People saying that's never going to work. And until it actually works, they're right. I spoke to my mum yesterday about it and my partner. And I am missing my father a lot recently. That was class, man. Honestly, I enjoyed. That's the best one I've done. That.
Before we dive into this episode, I want to ask you to hit the subscribe button here on YouTube. It helps keep growing the channel and keep getting fantastic guests like this one. Kruise, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And we made it happen here in Leeds as well.
Very close to home.
Yeah. And I think we're talking at a really cool time for you in terms of coming off the back of 4 trophies in one season, like that kind of feeling of elation. But I want to go back way before that, and I want to hear the story about how the name Kruise came about.
Yeah, it's my story, so I just see it as a story, but everybody's cottoned onto it and they like the idea of where it's come from. So yeah, I'll take you right back. So my dad was fully British. My mum's from Swaziland, fully Swazi. That's a landlocked monarchy in Africa for people that don't know where that is. Dad was born in Halifax, so he grew up, went to the army, and in that stage, I think he got to about 27, 26 when he left the army, and then he had a choice to flip a coin. Heads being America, tails being Africa. He wanted to go, leave home, he wanted to travel. He was a very free spirit, my dad, in the fact of he wouldn't stick around doing things for very long. Window cleaner, army, he'd do bits and bats like that. So yeah, flipped the coin, says right, it landed on whatever it landed on, I'm going to travel Africa. Travelled Africa, got to Swaziland, met my mom. Then my mom and my dad went on cruise ships, and there was croupiers on cruise ships. And for people who don't know what that is, it's the people that deal the cards, blackjack.
On the onboard casino.
On the onboard casinos, spin the wheels, take your money. They always win. The
house always wins.
Yeah. So that's what they were doing on the cruise ships. And the rule is, if you're on them cruise ships, because you have to, it's like being on a plane, the people that run the ships, the croupiers, the deck people who are on deck, you can't be with child because you've got to get the passengers off first. And obviously, if you're with a child, you're going to take, you're more chance of taking yourself off first. So that's one of the rules. And when my mum fell pregnant on the cruise ship, she had to hide it for a number of months because they didn't have enough money to leave at the time that they found out. So I can remember her telling me she used to tie like towels and things and
to hide the bump.
To hide the bump for as long as they possibly could. And then it got to a point where they couldn't hide it anymore. They had to tell them, and it was such a memorable time for my mum and dad to be traveling the world in love, young, on cruise ships, staying in different areas of the world. The way that they spoke about that time to me was, their eyes would light up, and it were a very special time for them. And when obviously I were born as well, so it were a very special time for him because my dad had his first son, firstborn. And when I was being born, because of the time that they'd had on the cruise ships, they wanted to remember that time, and they wanted my name to resonate with them in such a way that, right, we've been traveling these places, we've met done these things. So, and we've got this, we've took away this baby boy from it. So we want him to remind us of this special time that we've had. So they wanted to make my name something to do with the ship. Connect it to the ship. And for a long time, my dad was saying Anchor. Anchor's a good name, and Anchor's part of a ship. God, I'm glad that they didn't. You
would have taken a tough time and kind of on the field sledging, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would have. So I'm glad that they didn't go with that. But they come up with Kruise, spelt with a K instead of a C to make it different from the ship. And yeah, that's where my name come from. So you
can see why I asked, Kruise. It's such a cool story. Yeah, and it's got depth to it, doesn't it? And everyone likes to talk about family heritage, and I think that's all stuff that like make us who we are.
Yeah, and it's something that when I was younger, being different is something that you don't really want. I think it's only as you get older you realise the differences is what make us who we are. And for me, growing up, being different, having a different name, being a different colour, coming from a different background, I might have tried hiding that in certain ways. I can remember going through stages of school where, you know, my hair was curly. I used to try and straighten my hair a little bit, and it's just being a child and being different and trying to work out who you are and how you fit in this world. And then you get to a stage where sport is fantastic for that inclusivity and making you proud of your heritage and where you come from. And through sport, I've learned to find out more about where I come from, find out more about my name, ask my mum, well, you know, why did you do that? What were you working as that? And I'm really, really proud of my upbringing. I'm really proud of my name. I'm really proud of my heritage and where I come from now. And I think that's just part of growing up. And
I love to hear that, and I completely agree. I think as kids we all try and merge into this kind of one homogenous thing to fit in the crowd, because you get less hassle when you're in the crowd. If you're wearing the same trainers that everyone's got in the same bag, you fit in. But if you've got maybe a different one, or your parents couldn't afford to get you the fancier shoes, then you feel like you stick out like a sore thumb and you're just desperate to kind of conform. But as you know from what you've gone on to do, and anyone that listens to a podcast like my one knows that so many of the guests that I've had have done unusual things. And it's because of their own uniqueness, rather than they just decided to try and be like the kind of identikit template of somebody that lives in the UK.
Yeah, and you do weird things, get weird results, right? And I think for me, as I'm getting older, I'm starting to learn and look at trends of people who've gone on to do great things. And somewhere in that path that they've chosen, they've done something weird or something that's not conformed with the group. Because to be extraordinary or to do something that nobody else has ever done, you've got to do something that they've never done, and that you've got to find a path that's not trodden on. And I think that is where greatness comes from. And I think the more that you can think outside the box, have a look at different avenues, different perspectives on things, and do your own thing, I think you sleep better at night. The more I've become myself, and the more I've started to do what I think's right instead of what other people tell me is right, or even the things I do wrong, at least then it's dying on your shield, and you can go back and think, well, even if I've done it and it's wrong and a load of people told me not to do it, it was my choice to do it, and that helps me sleep. Yeah, you can own it. Helps me sleep at night, whereas I couldn't think of anything worse than doing something somebody else told me to do and it being wrong anyway. And that would eat away at me for a long time.
That's the nightmare for me, isn't it? Like, especially if people talk about like life on autopilot, it's something I really rail against on the show when I talk to guests like yourself. Just living that mundane lifestyle, because that's what everyone in my area does. Everyone goes to the pub this Friday and Saturday. Everyone goes to watch this football team or this rugby team, and that's just what we do. And they work at this job that they all hate, and they all aren't really very happy with their partner, and they cheat them every Saturday, and that's cool. Like, it's this like horrible groupthink lifestyle that you just want to shake people and get them out of.
And I feel for people as well, because like you say, to step outside your comfort zone is it's a tough thing to do. And at the start, you're stupid for doing it, you're weird for doing it, why are you doing that? It's not. And the problem with that is everyone is right until you do what you go on to do. And that's the tough bit about it. People saying that's never going to work, and until it actually works, they're right. So you're fighting against this crowd, these people that are laughing at you, that saying what you're doing, it's weird, it's never going to work, you're stupid for doing that, why are you getting up at that time, you don't have to do that, just come and do it. And you're listening to all this, and until you make that break or get through it, everything they're saying, you're like, you're waking up, nothing's happening.
You're worried there's an element of truth in it.
Yeah, there's an element of truth. You keep doing, getting up at that time, you keep running. You don't want to go out and drink with them. You want to sacrifice. Oh, we had a great night last night. What did you do? Well, I just stayed in, read a book, or I stayed in, trained for rugby. And they're like, mate, you've no chance. And they're all right until the time where, you play your first game, your debut or whatever, and then it all shifts. And then that courage that you get from sticking to what you think's right, the path that we talked about before, is then what gives you the courage to go on and do it again. And then you do it on a bigger scale. Then you might cut off from loads of people, you go down, because then you want even more abnormal results. But the initial part, I feel for people, because I've been there, and it is so hard to distance yourself from groups and friends and comfort zones, because like I say, until it works, they are right.
Of course, and you need an element to kind of prove yourself. When you were growing up then, rugby league was the path. How early on did you think, I'm really going to do something special in this space?
I'll be honest, it was something that came to me instead of me going to that, if you know what I mean. I'll try to explain myself. I was doing it, and I showed a little bit of promise. I was, from being 12, 13, I was playing, I was getting picked for the side. But to me, it were never a thing of, I'm going to make a career out of this. It never was that. And to be honest, I wanted to be an actor. When I was really young, I remember speaking to my nan and saying, I'm going to buy you a Ferrari one day because I'm going to be an actor, and Tom Cruise and my name, and I loved that. And my thought behind being an actor was, they can be anything they want on that screen. And I enjoyed that. I liked the fact that everybody, when you're younger, especially my family, would always say you can be whatever you want and do whatever you want in life. You just need to. So then I thought, how better to prove them right by being an actor, and I could do anything.
Any day of the week could be a different job.
Different job. So I think I fell in love with that a little bit. Then golf came in. I played a lot of golf, showed a lot of promise in golf. And then I wanted to be a pilot. I think I've always liked the fact of being free and doing something different and being able to, change and have different experiences within that same job. Like acting, being a pilot, you're in different countries, but you're still doing a similar job. Rugby's very similar, where you're going to different places, playing different teams.
There's a variety.
Different highs. The feelings are never the same going into the changing rooms, going into games. And I think I've always liked that. But yeah, rugby was something that were on the back burner. I was playing it because my mates were playing it. I was enjoying it. And then at 16, I can remember my mum's always pushed me into education. She's always pushed me into education. And not from the point of when it normally comes from. My mum, because she was born in Swaziland, grew up in Swaziland, you have to pay for education back there. Every day you go to school, you have to pay a certain fee. So it's a third world country. It's full of poverty. But if the parents can pick one day that the child can go to school, whether it be a Monday or a Tuesday, that's the only day they can afford. They push them to school, and it's a privilege over there. So the rich kids go to school 5 times a week, and the poor kids go to school once. Sometimes half a day they can only pay for. So then for my mum for me to be born over there, my mum, my dad, me to move over to England, for me to be getting free education, it were always a thing in our house that, wow, this is free. You can go as many days as you want. We didn't have much money, but at least you can get an education. She fell in love with that idea. So that was majority of the reasons why I moved over here. A, to get a better opportunity in life, but B, because schooling was free, and she thought, if I can get a good education, as it is right, you get a good education, so you can get a good job, you can make something of your life. So I'm going through school and I'm getting this education. As you do, first of all, I was so on it, and I was like, yeah, I get it, it's educated. Then you become complacent.
It becomes the norm. Unlike for your mum, who I know you've said before, she went on to do further education when she came here because she just couldn't believe the opportunities. As a kid, of course, you just become, like all my mates go to school at that standard. Whereas if you were maybe back in Swaziland, you would realise how mad it is that 5 days a week you're going in and getting hours of tuition.
100%. And she once took me out of school, and we went back, and I went to school in Swaziland. When I went back, I think she was trying to make me realise that the opportunities that I've got over here. So yeah, to cut a long story short, the education thing in my house were a massive, massive thing, and it was something that was talked about for a long time. And then at 16, she's like, right, let's go to university, let's get a job and all. And I turned around and I started showing promise. I I made the first team then, and I had my debut at 17. So at 16, she's talking about uni and
what courses you're going to go and do.
What courses I'm going to go and do, and I just didn't. I knew then it were a path I didn't want to go down, the educational route. I'd done it for 12 years or whatever, and it's something that I loved while I was doing it, but it served its purpose. Then to fast forward a year I went to like a college. I got a phone call from my first team coach, says we're wanting to give you a professional contract, Huddersfield Giants. I walked out that day. That day, I can remember leaving my bags and my books because they said, it's a full-time contract. Obviously, what I'm doing now, you train through the day, professional deal, money on the table. We want to offer you. I can remember leaving, the phone call come through, nervous because I'm thinking, why is the head coach ringing me? I'm only a 17-year-old lad. And left my bag in there. Teacher's like, oh, you've left your bag. Like, what are you doing on the phone? Boom, gone. I were out of there. Then I never went back. For then, my mum, to go to your mother and say, I want to become a professional sportsman, is like saying you want to become a magician. They're just, it's
hard. It's hard for them to visualize. And I always say this: parents are conservative for the small c. They want the safest possible outcome for you on a path that they can kind of see where it's going to go, because it's much easier for them to be like, oh, Kruise will be fine if he goes to uni and gets a job on 25 grand a year and eventually gets a mortgage and a house and a kid. Like, it's easier for them to conceptualize because it's been done by many people before, and they can kind of be like, okay, he's going to be okay. Whereas with professional sport comes tremendous risk. Like, what's the guarantee that all the guys that you signed with in whatever year it was at Huddersfield, how many of them went on to have a career like yours? Not that many. So the chances are a lot smaller. So you can see from a parent's perspective, they're a bit like, oh, I'd rather you just took the safe option.
100%. And Mum, 100% forgive my mother for thinking like that. That's exactly how I might think when I have a child. I've not got any children at the minute, but exactly like you're saying, it's the risk reward, isn't it? And big risk could have big reward, but in the same factor, there's massive failures and massive. I've seen, like you say, a lot of my friends not go on to have the career that I've had. But so in that aspect, we fell out a little bit, but never too much. It was just. But then eventually, fast forward a couple of years, I started playing a lot more, started getting a bigger contract, more money. And then, she saw the potential in that and fully backed me. But the way that my mother brought me up, I can only thank her for, and she's been a massive help in my life. Yeah,
the way you speak about your mum is amazing, because I know that you lost your dad at a really young age at 8. So your mum has been instrumental in playing both those roles, really.
Yeah, and it's crazy because we speak a lot now, and as you are as a young lad and parents, you rebel sometimes and don't understand why they're doing certain things. It's only as I'm getting older, my love for my mother is growing and growing and growing and growing. The older I'm getting, and the life that I've been able to acquire for myself through the life lessons and the discipline that she brought me up with, I can only just keep thanking her. She's a massive factor in how I want to be perceived in her eyes. Is everything to me, and how proud I make her every day, and the family that I'm from is huge, because, like you say, to play two parents and to not let me get away with anything. And I think now in parenting, what I've seen, sometimes they try too much to be the child's friend now. Mm-hmm. And then it's detrimental to them in the future, because if your kid wants sweets now and you're like, I like it, I love my mum if she gives me sweets at 3 or 4 year old, that's brilliant for her to give me sweets. But then my teeth are falling out and I've not got a good set of teeth, and at 28 I can't get a girlfriend, and then I'm at home, I'm living with my mum. It's like,
it's the whole easy choices now, hard life later.
Yeah, 100%. And my mum was a master in doing that, of not being my friend when I was younger, to now be my friend when I'm 29, and me and my mum are so close. And like I say, the more I'm growing and the older I'm getting, the closer and closer we're becoming.
Yeah, I love to hear that. And I think like so many great examples. Like if your parents are maybe strict with you when you're younger, you kind of resent it a little bit, but you realise that it was for the greater good and over the longer term. Like I look at the values my parents instilled in me, and I'm very, very grateful for how that's made me turn out as a man.
It'd be great if we could have kids and we could show them, look, in 10 years, this is, if you keep doing that, this is what's going to happen, this is why I'm stopping it. And I'm sure my mum would be able to say that. And I know when I speak about my mother in these podcasts and she listens to them, she's smiling because I bet she's just thinking, well, I told you so. I give myself a little bit of credit that I did listen to what she was saying. You still have to have somebody that listens to what you were saying, and I did listen, sometimes with resentment in some areas, but I always listened to what she was telling me, and I've always tried to be the best son I can for her, to be honest.
Yeah, and I've got massive respect for the way you speak about it, and in particular, I think your mum's done an amazing job, particularly as we said, like losing your father so young, that could derail many young men. I think if you look at the crime statistics and you look at the prison statistics, so many of the guys that end up in those situations are those that maybe don't have that masculine role model to rely upon.
Yeah, and for a guy, it's crazy that you speak about this, to be honest, because I lost my dad at 8, and I felt, even a year ago at 28, 27, I feel like I'd got over it, and I'd put it to bed, and I can speak about my dad, and I'm open. I've got so many fond memories, and just losing somebody, right? And you get over it. Me and my mum had a conversation yesterday. I'm missing that. I've got a lot of good people in my life. There's a father figure / mentor / brother that I've had through my life that's been huge for me. There's my mum, there's my uncles, there's a lot of but as I'm getting to 30, the next chapter of my life is to talk, is children, is what I'm going to go on to do after rugby, what I'm going to do to occupy my time when all rugby starts to finish. Not that I'm at the end, but I'm close to the end.
You're thinking big picture.
You've got to think about it. And I spoke to my mum yesterday about it, and my partner. And I am missing my father a lot recently, and I think it is that role model or male, because my mum was saying, what do I miss about him? And it's not anything, it's probably just to ask him, Dad, am I on the right tracks here? Am I going down the right routes? Is this the things I should be concentrating on? Are these the meanings of life? What? And sometimes it's not even for him to say, do this, do that, this is what you should do. It's probably sometimes for him to just go, I don't know, and me to go, well, I don't know either, and that's all right.
Yeah, it's not validation in like the surface level, like likes on Instagram sense. It's like validation of like, am I mad for thinking this, or am I thinking in the right way? And him as you plus 20, 30 years down the line, been like, yeah, that's how it is.
That's how it is, yeah. And my mum, we were smiling when we were talking about it. Me and my partner were talking about it, and it's not for him to be here to be saying that needs to happen, that's the right thing to do. It's not. It's just to say, I wouldn't know what to do there either. And then it's like, it gives me the confidence to walk down that path that nobody knows about with, all right, well, I've got a couple of people behind me, and I have got them people behind me, but there's always that doubt in your mind of, am I doing the right thing? And if you do the wrong thing, for me to think, would my dad have told me the right thing to do there? He might not have done, but it'd be nice to have that there.
Of course, we always want what we don't have as well sometimes. But yeah, it's so difficult, and I think it's important you mentioned you've had other male role models to rely upon, because maybe you can't have Mr. Leeming, but you can have other people that can be a sounding board for you and people that you can rely on as well. And so many of my guests have spoken about that kind of role model figure that they'd be able to go to and ask those daft questions, or just be maybe given a shake or the arm around their shoulder, depending on what they need at the right time.
Yeah, I've had some great male role models. Gaz Greenwood was my old coach, and he...
Was this in your early days at Siddle?
Early days at Siddle,
right.
Yeah, my amateur coach. He'd played professionally in bits and bats, but he helped me so much, not in the rugby side. He's very switched on that way, and we speak a lot now about rugby. But early on, when I needed that male role model, the way he opened that line of communication, them tough conversations, which I know now Like, going back to the parent thing, when they have them tough conversations, you think, oh, they like telling me off, or they like having them tough. It's not. They'd love to have a child that they never have to speak, but they just gets on and does the work. They don't like having them tough conversations, but they do it out of love. They do it out of being able to see the future of what's going to happen if they don't have that conversation. And now and when Gaz sat me down when I was a young lad to paint a picture a little bit, I went on. We played and we have a presentation night at the end of every year, and you'll get like most tries scored, top man at matches. That's like the player of the year, and then you have like a peer vote of players from the team. I'd scored the most tries that year. I'd got the most man at matches decided by the opposition coach every game. So I'd got them two votes, and then 9 times out of 10, the third one you get the players because they can recognise
your own teammates would see that,
that you've played well and you've got the most man at matches, and it's a vote, peer voted. And I can remember him sitting me down before the presentation night started, and he says, "Look, I'm going to tell you what awards you've got." He says, "You've got player at year, and you've got the most tries." He said, "How?" And I was buzzing, obviously, and he said, "How many players votes do you think you've got? How many of your other teammates have voted for you as being the best player, best teammate this year?" And I said 5, 4, and he was like, "No, a bit lower than that." And I 3, 2, and he says, "No, you've got none." And it shattered me that as a young lad. And he says, the reason is I was very screaming, shouting, if it wasn't done the right way. It was coming from a good place in my head of just wanting to win and being competitive, but the way I was doing it was all muddled up and it wasn't the right way. And he told me that. He says, if you carry on doing this through your career, you might be a good player, but nobody's going to want to spend time with you. Nobody's going to want to help you. And throughout this sport or this game that we play that's rugby league, or throughout this other game, the bigger game that we play that's life, you need help. I play a team sport that I need help with, and I play this sport of life, this game of life that I need help with as well. Everyone needs help. Nobody does anything alone. And I think... he said, nobody's going to want to help you. You're going to be very lonely. And if you don't change your attitude and the way that you treat people and the way that you are with people, no matter if you're good or not, it's going to be a very lonely life.
So many people listening to that will be able to picture maybe teams they played in where the star player was great but not likeable. And maybe they demanded higher standards of everyone else around them, but did it in the wrong way, as you were saying. And for somebody to be able to make sure you knew that at a young age is very helpful. But equally, there can be ego in the way where you're like, no, like I'm still the top try scorer. I'm still the most man in the matches. Who cares what other people think? But for you at that point to take that lesson is quite important. And I think you can maybe get away with that at like youth sport, but in like a professional environment, like when you were at the Giants or when you were at Leeds or now at Wigan, if you were that guy, there's only so good you can be to get away with that. Like I think like Ronaldo, for example, in the Portuguese team, like I'm sure some of his teammates love him, but some of them maybe find him a bit troublesome, but he gets away with it because he's Ronaldo, right?
Yeah.
But like, what are the chances of you being like a generational talent and every dressing room just being willing to accommodate you, even if you're a little bit of a narc or a moan or maybe take it too far on the side of criticism?
Yeah, and I think it was a very valuable lesson for me to learn early on. And like you say, even the players of Ronaldo's stature, there is a way of doing it. And I think to sit back and to have a load of trophies and a load of personal accolades is brilliant. But as I'm getting older, this is my preference, this is my idea of living a fulfilled life, is people to say, wow, I loved him being in that changing room with me. It made me feel confident. It didn't make me feel nervous. It didn't make me feel like... Because even though if you're an Ronaldo or whatever, I don't know what he's like in a changing room, but if he's raised his bar by 10%, but he pulls everybody else down by 5 because they're nervous to get on ball, they don't want to shoot because... and it's on to shoot. They don't want to shoot because they might make a mistake and they know they're going to get a spray off him. It's like, yeah, okay, he gets all the personal accolades, but...
the team might not win the big competition because they don't close in the right way. You're so right.
Exactly, and I don't want to be remembered as one of them people. I want to be remembered as he made everybody else 5% better if I can, and I'm still learning. I'm still getting things wrong. But for Gaz to point that out to me and then to fast forward 10 years from there and then get a peer vote for Leeds Rhinos, everybody voted for me to be the captain, was a massive shift, a massive turn, and it took me 10 years. That's how long it took me. It took me 10 years to make, but that were a huge thing for us because of what we've been through and the way that he'd spoke to me and the personal development that we'd made along the way. And to get to that point and to then get voted was huge. And as I'm getting older, that is what life is about for me. It's about making impact on people that you touch along the way, the people that you spend time with, the people that you're around. Is when you come into a room, people say time is the biggest commodity that we have. I'm starting to believe it's energy is the biggest commodity that we have, because I can spend time with you here. So we spend an hour and a half, whatever it is. If I'm just sat here and I'm not giving you any energy, and you might think, I wish I wouldn't have spent that time with it. Even though I've given you my time, I've still come to Leeds, still done a podcast. You're thinking, I feel worse than if I would have not had that time that he gave me. So the energy of how you give people, I come in and I want to know about you. I want to know about the podcast, how we do it, how you're doing. And then if you feel a little bit lifted up, 1% while I leave, I'm happy with that. And that's
not
what it's
all
about
time's
for me.
created equal.
100%.
And there's a level of like presence nowadays, and that's really hard with our phones and our devices. And I always say this, like whenever I've been dating more seriously, I'll be like, no phones at the table at dinner. And they'll be like, oh, and you're like, right, you can take a photo of the dinner, post it later in your stories once I've dropped you off. Not now.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have a conversation, we're going to be in the moment. And the same, I'm very close with my mum. If we go for like coffee or we go for a walk, whatever, my chimp brain is screaming at me, check your emails, check your WhatsApp. And I'm like, no, because I'm in this right now. And the appreciation and connection you get with people off the back of that is like a level or two deeper, because everyone nowadays has got these little distractions, and it really lowers our energy, our vibrations, whatever corny term you want to use. It lowers that if we're not present and fully in. And I think like some of the people I've got to know through the podcast I get on so well with now, because we spent an hour just in full flow back and forth, really listening and understanding each other, and we connect on a deeper level than some people connect with people that they consider their friends for years, because they're just never actually fully with each other.
They're not there, are they? And it's like, people have done podcasts that I know and they say, wow, that was good. It felt like a bit of a therapy session, that I feel better after doing that. And it's like, yeah, because you didn't have your phone, you spoke. It's like, when was the last time you just spoke like this for an hour with somebody and got off your chest what you wanted to get off, and
speak to
speak. And they're like, oh yeah. And it's like, well, that's what it's about. It's about speaking about things and making links with things. And that was my experience. What were your experience about that? And being ultimately present. And it's something that is a buzzword now, being present, being in the moment. It's a weird one for me as an athlete, because I've heard this a lot, and you do want to be present, and especially winning cups and things like that, and you want to savor that moment. You want to have a look around at the crowd and go, wow, I really want to be here in this moment. And I've always asked myself why, because I find that so hard to be in the moment. I'm always thinking about what's next, what do we need to do, and the link I've made, I don't know what your view on it is. As an athlete, or as anybody that does anything hard, running, whatever, if you're doing fitness or we're in a game and it's so tough, we practice as athletes so much of taking us as head to a different place, of not being in the moment, of not making that tackle after tackle after tackle, not running a marathon. You want to take yourself to a happy place, not doing them press-ups after press-ups. And I think the link that I've made with that is because we spend so much trying to take ourselves to a happy place, take ourselves out of that moment, take ourselves away. Then when you do get chance to be in that moment, it's something that we've not practiced for a long time, which is something that we're unfamiliar with.
Yeah, we've been training to escape or to do something without being fully in it. I think that's a great point, because you escape the pain of it then.
Yes, yeah.
So to be told that in conversations or in the celebrations or in the moment you've got to try and center yourself again, it's like learning a new skill all over again.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to do as an athlete, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think it's something that everyone's battling, but I think particularly because you guys, like you say, are kind of literally training to try and be able to push the body beyond what the mind can do, and sometimes the mind needs to have like a friendly distraction to help you get to where you want to get to. It's like so hard to go back in and try and be where you need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. You mentioned Leeds Rhinos there. What was it like moving from Huddersfield, where you'd kind of started your career and grown as a player, to a team that, from my kind of relatively novel level of knowledge about rugby league, know that Leeds is one of the biggest teams?
It was, in my head, a natural progression that I wanted to make. I feel like in life, in general, people that have normal jobs, you could say, I feel like you should, every 3 or 4 or 5 years, you should be switching around to if there's new challenges there. If the job that you're in is giving you the new challenges, new environments, new surroundings, new standards to meet all the time, then stay there for 20 years and people will find them jobs. But for me, when I was at Huddersfield, Leeds seemed like a new challenge for me, something that's different. And being stagnant and staying in your comfort zone, for me, what I've picked up during my life is one of the most fearful things that I've got, because if I stay in the same place, I know how fast time travels, and I know from being at Huddersfield for 6, 7, 8 years, from being at Leeds for 3 or 4 years, for the year I've just had with Wigan, how quick that's gone. I know if you stay in the same place and don't try to improve, A, you're going to be taken over by somebody that's moving faster than you, or B, you don't end up improving what your skill set, you don't end up challenging yourself. Then getting out of bed in the morning gets a lot harder than it used to be, because there's no nerves there, there's no challenge. You get stale, you become stagnant.
Yeah, and obviously becoming captain at Leeds was massive for you, and I love that kind of reflection where you would never have been picked as a captain as a junior because of maybe how likeable or how much of a teammate you were, but then flipping that on its head. Were you captain when you guys went to Wembley for was it Challenge Cup that you guys
Challenge
won?
Cup? No, it was the year after.
Okay, amazing. But that was during the height of like the lockdown stuff, wasn't it? So you actually won a cup, but not in front of fans.
Yeah, it was a surreal experience, but one that I'm glad that I've done, because now we've won the Challenge Cup with all the fans there at Wembley, with it being packed. Because some of the lads in that team had won one before, and obviously it's COVID, there were no fans, there were no media that could get hold of us. And the beauty of that we had when we won that is we got to just spend it as a team in the changing rooms after. No families could come watch. And what we just achieved for Leeds, we just sat in the changing rooms drinking and just chilled out and really in the moment. We were massively in the moment. They want media teams grabbing us. Can we have an interview with you? Can we have an interview with you? The fans won't try to get hold of us. It was just really a surreal experience, and I'm glad that I were a part of that. But I've always then had that itch of, I'd like my family to watch, I'd like the fans to be there. And then to do it with Wigan, where the packed out, fans there, media all over us, fans all over us, was awesome as well. So the both experiences were so different but so great at the same time.
Yeah, so good. It's nice to have that juxtaposition. I mean, God forbid we ever have a period like that again where we're locked in and we've got all those restrictions, because I love my live sport, and I think we lost something with that in terms of like fans in the stadium connecting with players and the reactions, and like I can only imagine it was quite eerie at times playing in like a Headingley or something like that, and you're looking around, normally there's like 15,000-20,000 people there, and it's just you, the ball, and 13 guys in your team and 13 in their team.
The craziest thing about it was that people won't understand, because I can remember watching other games, and for the viewers, they put the crowd noise on through the TV. But obviously we didn't have that on the pitch. And the weirdest thing was you could hear the commentators commentating from the gantry on the game, and obviously you do something and then you'd hear them. That was such a.
It's like being a PlayStation player.
Yeah.
Like Kruise sidesteps and he's through past the fullback, and you're thinking yes.
Yeah.
It's like watching yourself on FIFA or something, but the rugby equivalent.
Yeah, it like I say, it was a very strange time. Some people went through some very dark times, and my heart really goes out to them. My experience of COVID were a little bit different. I was still playing. I was still fortunate enough to work and do my job. And fortunate enough, like we said before, to make impact on people's lives. Of at least there was some sport for people that were sat at home. They could look forward to watching me, to be part of their night that, they got excited for. I was proud of that. And to experience the Wembley trip with no fans, and to experience different types of games where you could hear the commentators, that might never happen again, and to be a part of it was surreal but very special to me as well.
Yeah, for sure. What does a day for a pro rugby league player look like away from COVID, obviously, in 2024?
For me, I get up at 4:35 a.m. because I live in Halifax. To then travel to Wigan takes me about an hour. So I'll get up. One of the lads there, we used to swim in the morning, do 50 lengths. That's not what normal lads do, but we'd get up, go swimming, because I were over there so early. It were such a tough time to be at training, because if I left 30 minutes, 40 minutes later, I'd get there
Traffic.
2 hours later. So I had to leave early enough, but then it'd take me 50 minutes and I'd be there and I'd be stuck around for 3 hours with nothing to do. So I wanted to fill my time. I loved that time going over, driving over, nice podcast on or a book on, bit of music sometimes, get there, go for a swim, 50 lengths with one of the lads at Wigan, one of my mates, then we'd go for a coffee. It was, if I didn't sign for Wigan and I'd signed for Halifax and it were down the road, it'd be weird to be doing things like that. It were almost like I were forced to do it, and from the outset you're a bit like, oh, I wish I lived a bit closer. But I absolutely loved that time, and now going forward it's something that I'll definitely have in my routine all the time, because that's what living was. I was getting up early, I was getting, we're getting paid to train with the lads, we were swimming, we were having coffees, the sunshine would meet us when we left the swimming pool, and we'd go for a coffee, we'd have a laugh, we'd go into training, that starts this morning. Then we'd probably have a meeting with the head coach of what the day is going to run like, maybe have some over breakfast, a little debrief of what the day is going to run like. Then we'd start as day, maybe a little bit of footage on the team that we're going to play that week, then into weights. Then some days we'd have after weights wrestle, that's just like combat.
Yep.
Then maybe a lunch break, then go out on the field, practice what we'd seen on the screen of how we're going to exploit the team's defence, what we're going to do to nullify their threats. Come back, have another feed after that, lunch together. It'd be probably a snack before, then light lunch, then a proper lunch together. Sit round all together. Like we're very similar in the same aspect of no phones at lunch, and we have that type of policy. So we're more together as a team. We'd have lunch, and then we'd either go for a coffee with the lads if anybody was staying round, or we'd get off and go home.
Yeah, so it's a really full-on, jam-packed start of the day, and that's all the big things that allow you to perform at your best?
Yeah, everything in that routine that I've just spoke to you about is needed and necessary. If one of them went, for me, I wouldn't be at optimum level for myself. I enjoyed every single part of that day, and every single part of that day had a purpose in me performing the way I wanted to perform on a weekend. And the way I look at it, sometimes I'm never going to... nobody ever performs good every week. And, I've had my bad games, up games, down games, but what we spoke about right at the start of being able to sleep at night is if I'd got everything in my routine and that week that I'd ticked off and got right, and I played bad, it was like, sometimes it just doesn't go for you, and that's live sport. Things happen that you didn't account for, that, nobody knew that were going to happen. Certain things happen. Could have got up on wrong side of bed, whatever it was. I just didn't play well. But if I missed any little thing out of that routine and then I played bad, that would not allow me to sleep well at night. And it were all about, I say sleep well at night, but you just being comfortable.
More restless, and you'd maybe question.
And then you're leaving it to a bit of, well, what if you would have done everything that you could have done? Would you have played better? And so it were all about what would help me sleep at night better, and got my routine. Being at a new club, it's about finding, you're travelling a bit more, bit of a different routine, what works, what doesn't work. Sometimes I overdid it. That's what made me play bad. Sometimes I underdid it. And it's about being on that line of not overdoing it to the point where I'm going into a game and I'm feeling like my legs are a little bit sore. And I'm warming up and I'm thinking, I've overdone it. That were always my gauge. If I ran out and for warm-up and my legs were leggy and I felt a bit sore, I just think, I've pushed it too much. And then being to the point where I didn't feel as light and as bouncy and as fit. So I'd underdone it. I felt a bit heavy. I felt a bit like I wasn't running right. I wasn't breathing properly. I didn't feel, optimum level. Then I felt like I'd underdone it. So it were about fine-tuning that line. And as I've got through the year and towards the back end of the year, I seem to find my line and seem to find teetering on that, and just little tweaks every now and again worked best for me. That again has been another journey that I've been on.
I mean, some of the games you played in this year, like to win all 4 trophies, like they're as big as you've had in your career before you've gone on. I wonder, like, how you feeling before you go out?
Yeah, well, very nervous every game, very nervous. And it was, first of all, it was questioning, why do I get this nervous? What is it that makes me this nervous? People don't look like they're as nervous as me. And then being able to say, that's me, that's what I get before a game, and this is my feeling, and being okay with being comfortable in that feeling. This is what I'm going to feel every game. It's not wrong. It's, you shouldn't be feeling it, or I shouldn't be feeling it, or you should be feeling it because I'm feeling it. Why are you feeling it? It's no, this is how I feel before a game, and that's me getting ready for a game and being comfortable in them feelings, and being comfortable with, again, live sport, not knowing what's going to happen. You could speak to the 70,000 fans out there at the grand final and ask them what is exactly going to happen in this game. Not one of them could tell you. So why were I beating myself up before games thinking, well, this should happen, I've watched this video and that's what he should do, and that. And just being able to just play the game in that flow state of, I don't know what's going to happen. So whatever pictures I see, and I try and take little snapshots of my position. This is getting really technical, but if I see that, the way I did it in my head, it's like a tennis player.
Yep.
If he sees that ball coming over at net, he's got to play that shot. That ball coming over net, he's got to play that. He then, what I got messed up in sometimes was, if I'd played like a backhand shot constantly, and for me that might be just passing it off the floor. It's like, well, when's that smash shot coming? And then I'd try and smash a shot that were just a simple backhand shot.
Yes.
And that's when I messed that up then. And it were about, well, I'll just keep playing that backhand shot back across the court for as long as it, and then as soon as the ball goes up in the air, I'll smash it. And if it goes up in the air 10 times in a row, right at the start of a game, I'll smash it 10 times in a row. If I don't get it until the 79th minute, I'm going to have to wait till then. And that were about me maturing and getting to a point.
That's so interesting, because I guess from the position you play as well, it's like there's a lot of dictating the play and how it's going to happen. If you were too desperate to play the smash too early, then it maybe exposes your teammates, you maybe turn over the ball, etc., etc. But that level of being like, if it's on at the start, it's happening 10 times in a row, cool. But if I have to wait to the 79th minute, as you say, I'm also fine with that too. And I think there's a level of like calmness, maturity, experience, and just like game knowledge that comes to allow you to make those decisions.
Yeah, and it's being comfortable as well in not knowing you're a human being. If you're sat across from that court, I don't know what shots you're going to play. I can't say. I've watched video on you. I know what you're good at. I know what your strengths are. I can prepare at certain levels of, if I play to his right hand, he normally lobs it up a little bit for me, or if I play to his left hand, he's good on his left. So I can, but I might play to you. You might have been practicing that right hand all, and that's what normally would happen in rugby league. The fact of we'd practice something that we'd seen them being exploited with the week before, and then they've obviously got a rocket because they've been rubbish in that area. The right side defence hasn't been right or whatever, and then you play down that a couple of times. You think, wow, that's solid, and it's because they're looking at their weaknesses.
They've spent their full week training to try and counteract that, and you've been spending your full week training trying to get at it. It's two rocks hitting together.
Exactly, and that's what state I wanted to be in. Of look, have I got, first of all, if that ball does get lobbed up to smash it, have I got that smash shot in my arsenal? And that's where the preparation and the things come. Am I fit enough to get to that ball? Am I fit enough to do all these? And the more prepared you are through the routines that you've had in the week, then gives you more confidence to just sit back and go, okay, well, my backhand's as good as his, and I'll just keep playing it back to him. Just low, and then my fitness is as good as anybody else's on the field, so I'm fit enough to just keep making my tackles, keep doing the thing that's right for the team. I think where you get too nervous, and it's unhealthy nerves, is when you haven't done the work in the background, and then well, if a smash shot does get put up, or if a gap does get made, or if somebody does make a break, I'm not going to be there in support because I'm not fit enough, I've not done the work. That's when you can start to panic, and that's a state where you try and overdo things. You try and smash a ball because you think, well, my fitness is running out here. So if I don't smash this back now, then I'm not going to get another chance, because I can't just keep playing that backhand back to him because I'm unfit. And I think once I'd realised that I'd got all bases covered, I was fine, I was okay. I've just got to let the game play out how it's going to play out. It calmed me down, and I was okay with the unknown of not knowing what shots you're going to play, not knowing what that other team's going to bring to the table. I'm okay with that.
Because you're prepared.
I'm prepared.
And there's the whole Hormozy thing, like the difference between nerves and excitement is often a level of preparation. And I know that from podcasting, the research that I do, the questions that I get ready. I know it from the sales pitches that I do or the public speaking that I do. If I'm well prepared, I have a level of nerves in general for most things, but I reframe it as excitement as long as I've done the work and the prep to feel like I've got the right to be excited. So you physically have prepped, so you've got the right to be excited rather than nervous because you know whatever happens. I'm going to physically be able to hang in there with him, and I've got the skills to execute at this level as well, and I'm going to be calm and ready to pull the trigger when it comes.
Yeah, and that's I think the best players, like you look at Ronaldo and stuff, the confidence, the arrogance, you could say, comes from the hours that he's put in and the preparation that he's made, is because he's not just saying it willy-nilly, saying, I'm going to do this. You know, you look at Conor McGregor and it's because he knows behind the scenes, whatever he gets given, he's prepared for everything, so it's fine.
For sure. And like the visualization he did where he knew where he was going to slip to and where he was going to punch from, like it's just rehearsed and grooved. And when the opportunity comes, you just execute.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
What would the last few years of your rugby league career need to look like for you to consider them a success?
I'd like to represent my country a little bit more.
You've been called up before. I saw that England Giants.
Yeah, I have got one cap. I'd like to do that. I'd like to represent my country a little bit more. I'd like to win more trophies for Wigan. I think
You've got a taste for it this year.
Yeah, and we've got a team there that's young, great coaching staff, great backing, great ambition of the club that we don't want to stop now. We want to keep going, and I think Wigan is a great club, and I want to win more trophies for them. And then down the line from that is to become a leader within the group, become a leader within my position, help other people play my position, help the team improve, and that to me will be a successful career.
Nice. I've just spoken to two former Scotland Union internationals, Rory Lawson and Adam Ash, both of whom retired quite abruptly with injuries. How much do you think about life post-rugby?
This has been a tough one, and it's been hard for me because I've always had the thought of if you chase two rabbits at the same time, you catch none. And within sport, you've got to be so focused and single-minded on what you want to do to achieve what you want. There's no room for plan B, there's no room for another avenue, but in the same aspect, I need to prepare for rugby after. I need to prepare for life after rugby, and it's something that's on my mind now, and it's something that I've shut the door on for so long, and it's been banging away, and then bangs have got louder and louder now. And this is what we're talking about before, about my father, and would he help me in that way, and asking questions and speaking to business people, because although I'm really experienced in what I'm doing, and I think that the skills that I've learned from playing rugby league and being in these successful teams and being in not so successful teams and being a leader of teams and not being leaders of teams, all these skills I feel that sport gives us is very transferable.
So transferable. Like everyone I speak to that comes out of a career like that, like yours, has things to bring to the table when it comes to discipline, hard work, structure, and communication, for example, as well. If you think about the number of people you need to all get on with within a 13-man team. Yeah,
and I want to use them skills that I've learned to help people. I'd love to do public speaking. I'd love to speak to businesses about the crossover between high-performing environments and teams within sport and the high-performing environments and teams within business, because I think they're the same thing. And
Culture is a big part of that, isn't it?
Culture.
Like how everyone acts in alignment with each other and how everyone acts like in dovetails. Like that's never more relevant than in a sporting team. But go into an office and it's exactly the same. Sales and marketing and operations, stock and operations. It all has to gel nicely.
Yeah, and what aligns with my values as well. So I'm doing something that I feel I'm good at. I can help. I can leave a little bit of value within teams, but I'm going through life as well and impacting teams, impacting individuals, speaking to people, and that's what we said. My currency now has changed from, the flash cars, and they're very nice, and I enjoy them. I'm very grateful for them, but to leave a legacy now for me is not what I leave behind, it's what I leave inside people. And what we spoke about, the interactions I have, and if I could speak to people and businesses to help them grow and speak to struggling leaders or struggling people that have got massive teams behind them, it would be something that I'd be really interested in doing. But that, again, it's something that I've got time. I'm not at the end of my career, but it is something that I'm leaning.
It's just coming into your mind, and you're thinking, I need to have a level of preparation for this. And I think stuff like sharing your story on podcasts and articulating yourself more often is practice for how you get that message across as well. Yeah,
and it's something that I've not had practice in before. It's not like people ask you for your story every day. And the more of it I can do, and the more I can help people that way, the better I'm going to get at it. So the more impact and more value I can give to others.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up that chasing two rabbits piece, because Adam Asher I spoke to is one of the co-founders of Pure Sport. You've maybe seen their stuff before. It was a CBD brand that started off as, and now it's this massive conglomerate brand for supplements and running and wellness and stuff. And he came under loads of pressure from the Scottish Rugby Union, and then when he went and played in the US for having like other business interests, and they were like, how much are you keeping your eye on the ball? But when you were explaining your day there is time in the afternoon for you to maybe change from rugby cruise to business cruise and be able to give yourself that headspace away from the other. Because I think some young rugby players can maybe be so stuck within the identity of rugby, or they turn off from rugby and they turn to something that's not as helpful for them. And like you see so many footballers who build massive gambling habits, or they play a lot of Xbox or Call of Duty or something like that, and there's lots of time for you to turn your attention to other things, but it just needs to be something that complements what you do and doesn't take away from the rugby piece.
And that's the hardest decision to make, because you get involved in stuff and you think, this is it, this is what, I'm going to invest my time and energy, and then it don't quite give you back what you've put in, and it's the wrong thing to do, and you get involved with people that are not good people. And my next venture, or the next thing I want to do, it needs to take time. And I know to build anything sustainable, anything worthwhile, it's going to take time. And something that's going to complement and run within my values of who I am, of what I believe in, run within the same avenues of that. So then I believe then it can help you catch, it's all part of that one rabbit then. If you can make everything part of that one rabbit, then you're still chasing that one rabbit, and the rugby gets better on the field, the business gets better off the field, and it's just this big conveyor belt of, standards and success and culture and part of who you are. That's what I want to create, and it's about getting where I'm at and what does that look like for me. And that's the next part of my life. It's something that I'm excited to do, something that I know if it's meant for me, it will pop up. Things like with rugby, I wasn't going out looking for it, and it just popped up and it happened. And I know there'll be people out there that want to do business with me or whatever, and if I just sit back and just carry on doing what I'm doing, try to be a good person, try to live every life with no lies, try to be able to sleep well at night, try to impact people in the best I can, and that energy thing that we spoke about, something will pop up in my favour, and it'll be a smash shot for me to not miss. I'll just take it.
Yeah, I like the analogy a lot, and I think like a term that always comes up for me is like two things, like congruent skills, so like skills that have an overlap in one area but another. You were asking about my sales job before we started, and I was saying, well, a lot of the communication skills I've learned in that, speaking to managing directors, finance directors, operations directors, and getting a meeting with them and having a conversation with them and then pitching them an idea, is very similar to me having a lot of research for a podcast, approaching the guest, getting them booked on, having a conversation and delving deeper with them. There's a lot of like the same parallels. And I think about those are both kind of pushing in the same direction. So in the same way, if you're being a good person within the changing room, being a mentor figure, looking after your mind and your body, then that's something that you would be able to go and do in another organisation that's not just a rugby team. And when those two things are in tandem and pulling together, you're almost creating what I would call a level of mastery within a particular area that overlaps into others. And the only other thing that I was really thinking about when you were saying that was something that's been really important for me is coming to any venture with a level of abundance. So you come from a place of abundance because you have your rugby league salary and your contract for the next however many years, and fingers crossed it all continues to go as well as it has this year, which is amazing to see. When you have an abundant position like that, you're less inclined to be desperate and to make moves which are out of alignment with your value set or put you at greater risk. So I do really well in my sales director role. I've exceeded target the last couple of years and things have been amazing for me from a financial perspective, and I enjoy what I do. So when I've been building the podcast on the side and my sales coaching on the side, I've not been in a rush to do it in a way which is out of alignment that would maybe make it grow faster, but might make it grow in the wrong way. So would that be me platforming some gangster or some guest that I know will do mad views and maybe grow my podcast, but I wouldn't be happy with how it grew and maybe who came to start to come to listen to my pod? Would I be happy if I maybe like did more sensationalist clips on TikTok that didn't really tell the story of what actually happened within the episode, but it got me a few more subs on TikTok? Probably not. Whereas I'm in a place of abundance where the podcast will grow, my sales coaching will grow, my career's in a great place, so I don't need to run away from it. So I'm coming from an abundant place, and I think you're the exact same. When you've got a good, solid base within pro rugby, any decision or venture you choose to go and do is on your terms rather than like, shit, I better get this to work.
And that, I think, is the preparation and the talk that we're, you know, I'm not trying to like go back to the analogy of smash a shot that's not there to be smashed, and I'm not trying to dive into something that's not apparent to me that this is, you know, this is a no-brainer. This is what I'm waiting for. There will become a time where rugby league is running out, and I might be in that situation where I have to think fast. But I'm hoping that that's not the case, and I'm hoping that, you know, I'm going to come from a place of abundance, what you're saying, and I'm going to take my time, and the right person with the right values will come along, and it'll just be an easy decision for me to make. Yeah,
really, really cool, Kruise, and I've loved today's conversation. I'm sure the listeners have as well. If they want to carry on the conversation with you, where should they head towards?
Socials, Lemo Kruise, that's at LeemoKruise. That is my Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Beautiful stuff. Both of those will be linked in the show notes, Kruise. Thank you so much to you, and thank you to the listener. I'll be back to speak to you all again very, very soon.